My name is Catherine. I'm 27 years old. And 3 hours before my sister walked down the aisle, she sent me a text that said, "Don't come to my wedding. You'll embarrass us." No emoji, no explanation, just that. I stared at the screen for a full minute, feeling my throat tighten, then typed the only thing I could think of. Understood. I hit send, turned my phone face down, and went back to memorizing the opening line of a speech I had never told my family I'd been asked to give. They thought I was still the directionless little sister who couldn't keep a job, who jumped between hobbies and passion projects. What they didn't know was that I was the CEO of a startup that had just scaled faster than anyone expected. They didn't know about the anonymous nomination, the interviews, or that Forbes had quietly told me to keep my schedule clear for tonight's Under 30 CEO Awards Gala. While my sister rehearsed her vows in some luxury venue, I was rehearsing how not to throw up on stage if my name was called. I told myself her texts didn't matter, that I'd learned to live without their approval, but the words, "You'll embarrass us," kept echoing in my skull like a verdict. I didn't know yet that a state governor would be the one to put a trophy in my hands, or that a single flash from a photographer would end up on Forbes' homepage at the exact same time my sister was cutting her cake. I didn't know that the same relatives who used to whisper about my failed artist phase would be passing phones around at the reception, asking, "Is this her?" Before I tell you what happened when she saw that photo, and what I did when my whole family tried to spin the story back in their favor, tell me one thing. What time is it for you right now? And where are you watching from? I want to see just how far this little family embarrassment travels. I grew up in a house where comparison was a sport, and my older sister always won by a landslide. Her report cards were framed on the wall. Mine were folded and filed away in a drawer for later. She was the honor roll, straight A, future architect, future whatever she wanted child. I was creative, which in my family's vocabulary meant messy, unserious, and a constant source of mild concern. When she was chosen to give the graduation speech in high school, my parents bought her a new dress and a gold necklace. When my art piece was selected for a citywide student exhibition that same year, they congratulated me, took one phone photo under bad lighting, and then asked if I'd thought more about majoring in something stable. The pattern stuck. She went to a top design school, landed a job at a high-end firm, then left to start her own interior design company. Within a few years, she was the golden child with a glossy portfolio, polished Instagram, and clients that my mother dropped into conversations like humble brags. You know, my eldest did the penthouse for. Meanwhile, I jumped from bartending to social media freelance gigs to teaching kids how to paint in a community center. Every time I tried something new, my father would sigh and say, "When are you going to pick a lane, Kat?" What they didn't see was that I was picking a lane, just not one they recognized. A few years ago, after one particularly brutal family dinner where my career was treated like a phase, I went home, opened my laptop, and wrote the first draft of a business plan. I'd seen too many artists burn out because they couldn't turn their craft into income. I wanted to build a platform that gave creatives real financial tools: automated invoicing, contract templates, split payment systems, and analytics that didn't require an MBA to understand. I called it Palette, half joke and half promise. At first it was just me, a secondhand laptop, and late-night coding lessons from YouTube. I didn't tell my family. I told them I was doing some freelance consulting because it was easier than explaining a half-built SaaS product. I did tell one person, my closest friend from college, Rachel, who worked in venture capital operations. She introduced me to people who didn't roll their eyes when I said, creators deserve better financial infrastructure. They asked questions, sent me into incubators, and kept pushing me to think bigger. The first time Paulette processed a real payment for a freelance photographer, I cried alone in my tiny apartment. Not because of the money, it wasn't much, but because for the first time, I could see a world where I wasn't the disappointment my family assumed I was. Still, every time I went home, the narrative never changed. My sister's company had features in magazines. My mother proudly pointed out her logo when it appeared in a local segment about women in business. When I mentioned I was working on a startup, my father smiled politely and asked, "So, when are you going to get a real job with benefits?" I learned to stop fighting. I nodded, changed the subject, and kept building in silence. Then, 6 months before the wedding, everything shifted. Palette closed a seed round. A mid-tier tech blog ran a profile on us. And, quietly, an editor from Forbes emailed my work account. "We're putting together a list of under 30 CEOs who are redefining creator finance. Can we talk?" I stared at that email so long my coffee went cold. For the first time, I wondered if maybe I didn't have to spend my life defending myself at my own family table. Maybe, one day, the world outside that house would do the talking for me. The months leading up to my sister's wedding were a masterclass in how to feel both essential and invisible at the same time. I was useful enough to design the wedding website, manage the RSVP spreadsheet, and help negotiate with vendors because you're good with people, Kat. But when it came to any decision that actually showed up in photos, I was politely sidelined. My sister, her name is Lily, by the way, you've earned that reveal, ran the show like the wedding was a brand campaign and every guest was a potential client. "We need cohesion," she kept saying in the family group chat. "No chaos, no surprises." The first serious crack appeared during a dress fitting. She'd chosen blush tones for the bridesmaids and had strong opinions about hem lengths, necklines, and shoes. I wasn't officially a bridesmaid, but I was still invited to the fitting to feel included. When I tried on a simple dress I'd bought myself, something that didn't scream background extra, Lily pulled me aside. "Kat, be honest, do you have anything nicer?" she whispered, eyes flicking up and down me. "This is nice," I said, keeping my voice light. "I paid for it, so I'd kind of like to wear it." She smiled, the tight, brittle smile she used on difficult clients. This is going to be a very curated event. I don't want anyone to look out of place." The word anyone didn't have to be spelled out. A week later, she sent a gentle reminder in the group chat about the dress code. Family outfits should look classy and elevated. No bold colors, no cheap fabrics. We have a certain image to maintain. My stomach twisted as I read it. My mother replied with a string of heart emojis. I typed "got it" and deleted it before sending. At that point, the Forbes thing was still a maybe. They'd interviewed me, but there was no guarantee I'd be included, let alone invited to anything. I didn't tell Lily. If it fell through, I didn't want to hand her another example of me aiming too high and getting hurt. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, an email landed in my inbox with a subject line that didn't feel real. "Forbes Under 30, CEO Awards Official Invitation." I opened it with shaking hands. They were doing a live event in New York, honoring founders who'd been selected for a special feature. It wasn't the big 30 under 30 list. It was a newer program focused on early-stage CEOs, and Paulette had made the cut. There would be investors, press, and a state governor presenting the awards. The catch? The date and time overlapped almost exactly with Lily's wedding. I stared at the calendar on my phone, the two events sitting on top of each other like a cruel joke. Lily's wedding, 4 p.m., and Forbes Under 30 CEO Awards, 5 p.m. I could, technically, leave the reception early and run across town half-dressed, but I knew how that would go. Lily would see me slip out, my mother would call it selfish, and my father would give me that look that meant, "Why can't you just be normal for once?" That night, I called Rachel. "I can't skip the wedding," I said as soon as she picked up. "They'll never forgive me." She didn't answer immediately. I could hear keyboard sounds in the background, like she was still halfway through an email. "Let me ask you a different question," she said finally. "If this wasn't your family, if it was any random event with people who don't believe in you, would you think twice about going to the Forbes gala?" I didn't have to think. "No." "Then stop pretending you owe them more than you owe yourself," she said. "You've spent years shrinking for them. Take the win, Kat." I wanted to believe her, but guilt sat like a stone in my chest. So I compromised, in my head at least. I decided I'd go to the wedding, be present, and then sneak out early, Uber to the gala, and hope my makeup hadn't melted off by the time cameras found me. The universe had other plans. 2 days before the ceremony, I woke up to an unread message in a private chat with Lily. No greeting, no build-up, just a block of text. "I've been thinking about Saturday. I don't want any drama. You've always been different. I need everyone to look put together and successful. I don't want people asking questions about why my sister still doesn't have her life together. Please don't come to the wedding. You'll embarrass us." I read it once, then again, hoping I'd misread something. I hadn't. My fingers went numb. For a second, I thought it had to be a joke, some warped attempt at tough love, but the more I looked at it, the more I could hear her voice in those words. Controlled, calculated, terrified of anything that didn't fit the picture she'd curated. I typed and deleted half a dozen responses. "Are you serious? You're unbelievable. I'm the embarrassment?" None of them made me feel less small. In the end, I chose a single word that felt like closing a door. "Understood." I hit send. Then I turned off my phone, walked into the tiny living room of my apartment, and stared at the printed gala invitation pinned to my corkboard. The choice she'd tried to make for me suddenly crystallized into something else. Permission. If I didn't belong at her wedding, then I was free to belong somewhere else. I called Rachel again. "I'm going to the Forbes gala," I said. This time, there was no wobble in my voice. "Good," she replied. "Let her have her perfect pictures. You're going to get something a lot more permanent than wedding photos." The day of the wedding, my alarm went off at 8 a.m., even though I technically had nowhere to be for my family. Habit is cruel like that. For a few disorienting seconds, I forgot the text existed. Then I reached for my phone, saw the last message from Lily sitting there like a stain, and remembered exactly who I was to them, a potential PR risk. I didn't cry. I'd done that in college, after job rejections and breakups and every minor failure that felt like proof I'd never catch up. Today, I didn't have the energy for tears. I had a speech to finalize. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up the notes for my 3-minute acceptance remarks, the ones I'd drafted just in case but never fully committed to. I read the first line out loud. Growing up, I watched the people I loved most underestimate the power of creativity. My voice shook on underestimate. I cleared my throat and tried again. I dressed for the gala in a tailored black jumpsuit that I'd bought secondhand and had altered within an inch of its life. It was simple, sharp, and sent a quiet message. I belong in rooms where decisions get made. I did my own makeup, hair pinned back, and for the first time before a big event, I didn't ask myself, what would my sister think? Around noon, the family group chat started buzzing with photos from the wedding prep. Lily in a silk robe, Lily's flowers, the venue, the bridesmaids lined up with champagne flutes. No one asked where I was. No one mentioned my name. My mother posted a selfie captioned, "So proud of my girl," and tagged Lily's business account. I muted the chat. Rachel arrived at my apartment around 3, carrying a small garment bag and 2 coffees. "You look like someone Forbes would put on a cover," she said, giving me a once-over. "Is that your power stance?" I don't have a power stance, I said, but I straightened my shoulders anyway. On the subway ride to the venue, a downtown hotel that had been converted into a glittering event space, I watched strangers scroll through their feeds, completely oblivious to the tiny war happening on my phone. Somewhere uptown, my entire family was gathering in a church pew, telling themselves I couldn't make it, or was busy with some work thing. Maybe Lily had spun a story about me choosing to stay away. Maybe she'd told them the truth. Either way, nobody had called. The gala lobby was a different universe altogether. Young founders in sleek suits and minimalist dresses milled around, badges hanging from lanyards, exchanging phrases like runway, product market fit, and Series A as casually as small talk. Banners bearing the Forbes logo and the event title, Under 30 CEO, flanked the entrance. There was a step-and-repeat photo wall, a press corner, and a bar already doing steady business. For the first few minutes, I felt like a tourist who'd accidentally wandered into the wrong country. Then someone I recognized from a Zoom panel 2 months ago waved. "Catherine, right? Palette?" he said. "We loved your segment on creator cash flow." Just like that, my world tilted a few degrees. "Yeah," I said, shaking his hand. That was me. As we talked about the headaches of onboarding, platform fees, and the nightmare of explaining what we do at holidays, I felt the knot in my chest loosen. These people didn't care if my outfit was classy enough for pictures. They cared if my product worked. A Forbes staffer circulated with a clipboard checking names. "We'll move into the main hall in about 15 minutes, she announced. "If your name is highlighted, you're a finalist. Please sit in the first 3 rows." My heart lurched. She reached my section, scanned my badge, and then put a small dot next to my name. "You're in the front," she said. "Congratulations." I managed a thank you that didn't sound like a squeak. While we waited to be ushered in, my phone buzzed again. Muscle memory made me glance down. It was a DM from a cousin I hadn't spoken to in months. "Hey, are you really not coming? Grandma keeps asking where you are." Guilt hit like a wave, then receded just as quickly. I typed back. I had another commitment. Tell her I love her. Before they could press, our group was directed toward the ballroom. The main hall was bathed in warm lighting, tables set but not yet crowded with food. A stage stood at the front, flanked by 2 massive LED screens looping through sponsor logos and short clips of previous winners. A podium stood center stage. On a reserved table near the front, I saw a little name card with Governor Elaine Porter printed in bold letters. So it was real. A sitting governor was going to shake my hand if I somehow won. I sat in the second row, knees bouncing under the table, as the room filled in. On my left, a fintech founder checked his notes. On my right, a woman running a climate tech startup scrolled through Slack. Somewhere across town, Lily was probably lining up with her bridesmaids, taking photos under some perfect floral arch. 2 ceremonies, 2 stages, 2 versions of success unfolding at the same time. My phone buzzed once more. This time it was my mother in a private chat. "You didn't even send a message for your sister's big day? This is hurtful, Catherine." I stared at her words. A part of me wanted to reply. She uninvited me, attach a screenshot, and let the truth hit like a bomb. Another part of me was tired of defending myself. Instead, I locked the screen, slid the phone face down on the table, and whispered to myself, "Tonight is about you. Just this once. Let it be about you." The host walked on stage right as the last conversations were dying down. After the usual sponsor thanks and a highlight reel of past honorees, he introduced Governor Elaine Porter, who stepped up to the podium with that practiced ease of someone who'd given 1,000 speeches and still knew how to make each one feel new. "Tonight," she said, "we're celebrating people who are building the future before the rest of us can even imagine it." I let the words wash over me, half listening, half counting my own heartbeat. The Under 30 CEO Awards were structured by sector: healthcare, fintech, climate, creator economy, and so on. Palette fell under creator economy and tools. Our category was fourth on the list. I watched 3 groups go up before us, applauding politely as names were called, photos snapped, hands shaken. Everywhere I looked, there were proud co-founders, partners, parents, friends. I wondered, for a brief, sharp second, what it would have felt like to have my family in the audience. Then I remembered the text and felt something colder settle in its place. When they finally got to our category, my palms were so sweaty I had to wipe them on my jumpsuit under the table. The next group of honorees, the host announced, are reshaping how creators work, earn, and build sustainable businesses. If you've ever bought art, booked a photographer, or binge-watched a creator's content, these are the people quietly powering that world. A highlight montage played on the screens, snippets of apps, creators on shoots, dashboards with rising charts. I saw a 2-second flash of Palette's interface, our logo, in the corner, a simplified diagram of our split payment flow. My chest tightened with a rush of surreal joy. Then the host began reading names, from StreamSync, from CollabCart, from MuseMetrics. One by one, founders stood, walked to the stage, and accepted small glass trophies from the governor. My brain started whispering, "Don't get your hopes up. It's enough just to be here." And then, from Palette, a platform that's finally giving independent creatives the financial tools they deserve, Catherine Lane. For a heartbeat, I didn't move. Rachel jabbed me lightly in the arm from the row behind. The fintech founder next to me grinned. "That's you," he said, as if I'd somehow missed it. I stood. The walk to the stage felt like one of those dreams where the ground shifts beneath you. The lights were brighter than I expected. Governor Porter held out her hand, firm grip, steady eye contact. "Congratulations, Catherine," she said. "We've needed something like this for a long time." Somewhere in the audience, a camera shutter clicked in rapid bursts. A photographer stepped closer, angling for the shot. The governor holding the award with one hand, her other hand clasping mine. I smiled. Not the strained, apologetic smile I'd learned to wear at family functions, but something that felt like relief. The trophy was heavier than it looked, cool against my palm. We lined up with the other winners in our category for a group photo. As we stepped off stage, a Forbes editor caught my arm. "We're running the feature online tonight," he said. "You'll be on the homepage and our socials within the hour. Media team might grab you for a quick quote." I nodded, half hearing him. My phone, still face down on the table, vibrated continuously as I sat back down. I finally flipped it over, expecting more messages from my mother. Instead, the top notification was from the Forbes app. "Live now. Meet the under 30 CEOs changing the creator economy." Underneath, a preview image. Me on stage, shaking hands with the governor. The award caught mid-glint under the lights. I tapped it open. There I was, full screen. The headline read, "From Family Embarrassment to CEO, How Palette is Quietly Rewriting the Rules for Creatives." I hadn't used those exact words in the interview, but I knew I'd told them about being underestimated, about the relatives who thought artist meant unemployed. I swallowed hard. The article was already getting shares. At the bottom of the screen, the social icons pulsed with activity. Rachel leaned over my shoulder. "Kat," she whispered, eyes wide, "check your texts." I flipped to my messages. The family group chat had exploded. At first, it was just the usual wedding spam. Cake photos, the first kiss, my aunt's blurry selfie with Lily. Then, nested between them, came something different. A screenshot. It was my face on the Forbes homepage, the governor's hand clasping mine, the award front and center. Underneath my cousin's text, "Is this cat?" Another relative replied, "Wait, what?" Then, "Why didn't anyone tell us she was doing this?" My mother hadn't said anything yet, neither had Lily. A new notification slid down from the top of my screen, this time from Instagram. Someone had tagged me in a story. I clicked it before I could second-guess myself. It was a video from the wedding reception. The camera panned across a table full of guests in formal wear. One of them held up their phone to the lens. On the screen, paused mid-scroll, was the Forbes article with my photo. The caption read, "When you're at a wedding and realize the bride's little sister is on Forbes tonight?" You could hear someone in the background asking, "Wait, isn't that the one who didn't come?" Laughter, then a murmur of surprise. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. Somewhere at that reception, people who had once patted my head and said, "You'll figure it out eventually," were realizing I'd already figured something out without them. Back in the ballroom, Governor Porter was still speaking, but the words blurred at the edges as more messages poured in. A text from my father, short and stiff. "You're on Forbes?" A new DM from a high school acquaintance. "Bro, your family must be freaking out right now." And then, finally, a notification that made my stomach drop. Lily was calling. I stared at Lily's name on the screen as if it might morph into someone else's. The call timer started flashing. Rachel squeezed my arm. "You don't have to pick up," she murmured. She was right. I could let it ring out. Stay cocooned in this room where I was CEO Catherine and not the weird sister we don't talk about. But curiosity, or maybe old habit, won. I slid my thumb across the screen and lifted the phone to my ear. "Hello?" The noise on her end was chaotic. Music, clinking glasses, a burst of laughter, then the muffled thud of a door closing. When she finally spoke, her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. "What are you doing?" "No hello, no congratulations, just that." "Sitting at a table," I said, "at an event. You?" "Don't be cute," she snapped. "You're on Forbes. People at my wedding are literally passing your face around on their phones. Do you have any idea how that looks?" I almost laughed. "I have several ideas," I said. Most of them involve the phrase, "pretty damn good." She exhaled hard, like she was trying to blow out a fire. "This was supposed to be my day, Catherine. You couldn't give me one day without making it about you?" I blinked. "You uninvited me," I reminded her. "You told me I'd embarrass you." There was a beat of silence. "That text was private," she hissed. "I said that because I didn't want questions about why my sister still bounces between hobbies, why." "I'm a CEO," I cut in, "of a funded company. Forbes invited me. The governor gave me an award tonight. None of this has anything to do with you." "Everything has to do with me when it's my wedding," she shot back. "Do you know how humiliating it is to have clients here asking, 'Oh, I didn't realize your sister was so successful?' They think I've been hiding you or lying. It makes me look bad." The irony of her saying that, after accusing me of making the family look bad, hit so hard I had to stop and breathe. "Maybe," I said slowly. "The part that makes you look bad isn't my face on a website. Maybe it's the text you sent 2 days ago, the one some of our relatives have already seen." Her intake of breath was audible. "You showed them?" "No," I said. "But you know how phones are at weddings. People pass them around. Someone scrolls too far. Someone else sees a notification preview. I'm not the only one with screenshots now." The truth was, I had shown exactly one person, Rachel. But my cousin had accidentally seen the preview of Lily's message while I'd been debating whether to send a good luck text to my grandmother. She'd texted me privately earlier. "Did she really say you'd embarrass them? That's messed up." I hadn't answered. Lily's voice dropped lower, the brittle edge turning into something more panicked. "You need to fix this," she said. "Post something. Say it was no big deal, that you chose not to come because of work, that we're close. The entitlement in that request stunned me. You banned me from your wedding, I said. Now you want me to run PR for you? I was protecting our image, she insisted. You know how this industry is. Perception is everything. I couldn't risk you showing up looking unprepared. The word she didn't say was poor, or messy, or not enough. Lily, I said quietly, your image is your responsibility. You decided I wasn't polished enough to stand next to you. You don't get to decide whether I'm polished enough to stand next to a governor. For a moment, all I could hear was her breathing. Then the music from the reception bled back in as someone opened the door on her side. A distant voice called, "Babe, they're doing the cake." She covered the receiver, muffling a quick, "Coming," before coming back to me. "We'll talk later," she said. "Just don't post anything else. Don't give interviews. Don't make this bigger than it needs to be." "Lily," I said, but she'd already hung up. I lowered the phone slowly. My hands were shaking, but not from fear this time, from anger. Rachel watched my face, eyebrows raised. "Well?" "She's worried I'm stealing her spotlight," I said. "She wants me to help her control the narrative." Rachel rolled her eyes. "Of course she does." As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time it was our mother in the group chat. "We are so proud of both our girls tonight. What a blessed family." She'd attached 2 photos side by side, one of Lily and her new husband cutting the cake, and one of my Forbes screenshot. The caption read, "Beauty and brains." It took everything in me not to throw my phone across the table. The sudden performative pride after years of side-eyed comments, the way she claimed my achievement like it absolved them of every time they'd made me feel like a failure. It was too much. Then another bubble popped up. My aunt, replying in the chat with a screenshot of Lily's "You'll embarrass us" text that someone had clearly forwarded. "Funny," she wrote. "Didn't sound like pride 2 days ago." The chat went dead silent. No replies, no hearts, no laughing emojis. The screen's quiet felt louder than any argument we'd ever had at a holiday dinner. In less than 30 seconds, the narrative had flipped. It wasn't Catherine, the embarrassing sister. It was Lily, the bride who told her CEO sister to stay home so she wouldn't ruin the aesthetic. Word travels fast in big families. By the time the gala wrapped and we were funneled into a networking reception, my phone was a battlefield of competing messages, cousins apologizing on behalf of the older generation, old family friends sending, "We always knew you were special" notes, and one curt text from my father. "We'll discuss this when things calm down." There was no apology from Lily. No, I messed up. Just silence and, I imagined, a lot of image management on her end. I slipped my phone back into my bag. A venture partner I'd been trying to meet for months appeared at my elbow, drink in hand. "Catherine, right," he said. "Huge fan of what you're building. That Forbes piece was impressive. Let's talk." And for the next half hour, I did exactly that. I talked about unit economics, expansion plans, and creator retention rates. With every question I answered, the voice in my head that used to sound like my parents saying, "When will you get serious?" got quieter. It was replaced by something else, my own voice, steady and sure, saying, "I belong here." What I didn't know yet was that the real fallout with Lily wasn't going to happen over text. It was going to happen face to face, weeks later when the wedding high wore off and the consequences of that one message finally caught up with her. The universe has a dark sense of humor. 2 weeks after the wedding, Forbes ran a follow-up piece on 3 of the under 30 CEOs, diving deeper into their backstories. Mine was one of them. The article didn't mention Lily by name, but it didn't have to. It opened with a line that made my stomach flip. When your own family tells you not to show up because you'll embarrass them, you either shrink or you build something they can't ignore. The quote was real. I'd given it to the reporter after the gala, half afraid they wouldn't use it, half afraid they would. They did. And someone, somewhere, connected the dots. A small business podcast picked up the story, framing it as a lesson in underestimation and resilience. A popular Twitter account screenshot the quote, adding, "Imagine telling your sister not to come to your wedding because she's broke and then finding out she's an under 30 CEO." The tweet went mildly viral. People replied with their own family betrayal stories, their own glow-up arcs. It became a meme for a week. I watched it all from my tiny office, equal parts stunned and oddly calm. I hadn't asked for any of this noise, but I also wasn't going to twist myself into knots to stop it. Actions have consequences. Lily's came faster than she expected. Clients started asking questions, not about me, but about her judgment. One of her bigger accounts, a socially conscious brand that prided itself on supporting women in leadership, quietly pulled out of a proposal, citing misalignment in values. A potential collaborator emailed her team asking if the story was about their Lily, because if so, they wanted to reconsider. I didn't know the details right away. I only found out after she asked to meet. The text was short, almost formal. "Coffee? We need to talk. Just us. No parents." I almost said no. I owed her nothing. Not my time, not my presence, not my emotional labor. But a small, stubborn part of me wanted closure on my own terms, not as the background character in a wholesome, "we're all fine now" family narrative. We chose a neutral location, a cafe in Midtown, far from her office and mine. I arrived 10 minutes early, more out of habit than eagerness. When she walked in, she looked the way she always did, put together, composed. But there was something frayed at the edges, a tightness around her eyes, a stiffness in her shoulders. "Hi," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. No hug, no automatic smile. "Hi," I replied. We ordered coffees. For a minute, we made awkward small talk about the weather, the city, everything except the elephant in the room. Finally, she exhaled and dropped the pretense. "My text to you got out," she said. "No kidding?" I said. "You saw the tweet?" she asked. "The articles?" "It's hard to miss when your trauma has a trending hashtag," I said. She winced. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "You meant exactly what you wrote," I said. "You just didn't mean to get caught." She flinched like I'd slapped her. For a moment, I almost softened, the old instinct to smooth everything over rising in my chest. Then I remembered standing alone in my apartment the day of her wedding, reading the words, "You'll embarrass us," and I let the softness go. "I was under a lot of pressure," she said. "The wedding, the clients, the expectations, everything." I panicked. I said something awful. "You didn't say it," I corrected. "You typed it, edited it, and hit send. That's not panic, Lily. That's a decision." She stared into her coffee. "Do you know how it felt?" she said quietly, "to have people at my own wedding talking more about you than about me? Clients asking why I never mentioned that my sister is some hotshot CEO? Like I was jealous or hiding you." The word jealous hung between us. "Were you?" I asked. "Jealous?" Her jaw tightened. "You were always chaotic," she said. "Unpredictable. I worked so hard to build a clean professional image, to be the one our parents could be proud of without caveats. And then you show up out of nowhere with this company and awards and governors shaking your hand. It made me feel like I'd been sprinting on a treadmill while you took an elevator." It was the closest thing to vulnerability I'd ever heard from her. but buried inside it was the same old bitterness. How dare you succeed in a way I didn't foresee? That's not my fault, I said. And it's definitely not a reason to tell me I'd ruin your wedding by existing. She swallowed. I know, she said. I do. I know I crossed a line. I shouldn't have said what I said. I shouldn't have uninvited you. I was wrong. The words hung in the air, fragile and real. For years I'd fantasized about this moment, my perfect, triumphant version of it. In that fantasy, she sobbed, admitted everything, and begged for forgiveness. And I, gracious and healed, gave it freely, proving I was the bigger person. The reality felt different, smaller, messier. Here's the thing, I said slowly. An apology doesn't rewind my memories. It doesn't unsend the text or unleave me out of photos I'll never be in. It doesn't erase the years you and everyone else treated my life like a phase. So what do you want? She asked, sounding tired. For once, I didn't know immediately. I took a sip of coffee and let myself answer honestly. I want you to stop using me as a prop, I said. I'm not your embarrassing little sister when it suits you and your brilliant CEO sister when it makes you look good online. I'm a whole person. I have my own life, my own reputation, and I'm done letting you write my part in the family story. She nodded slowly. Okay, she said. Fair. I'm also not going to help you fix your PR problem, I added. Her eyes flicked up, surprised. I'm not asking you to. You kind of are, I said. By wanting us to meet, to smooth this over so you can tell people we worked it out, and everyone can post some cute throwback for Siblings Day. That's not happening, at least not right now. Silence settled between us. People moved around us, ordering pastries, laughing into their phones, living their lives. So where does that leave us? She asked. Somewhere between strangers and sisters, I said. You're the person who told me I'd embarrass you on the biggest day of your life. I'm the person whose success forced you to face the fact that you were wrong. We can either sit with that, or we can pretend it never happened. I'm choosing the first option, even if it's uncomfortable. She looked like she wanted to argue, but whatever fight she had left seemed to drain out of her. I'm sorry, she said again, softer this time. Not because of Twitter or clients or any of that. I'm sorry because I hurt you. And I don't know if I know how to be your sister without competing with you. That part, at least, felt true. Then maybe, I said, standing up, we take a break from being sisters. Let's start with being two adults who don't sabotage each other. She gave a bleak little laugh. Is that your version of forgiveness? It's my version of not burning the whole bridge down, I said. The rest, we'll see. I left the cafe feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. Lighter because I'd finally said everything I'd swallowed for years. Heavier because revenge, when it actually lands, doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like standing in the wreckage of a story you didn't write and realizing you finally get to walk off the page. On my way back to the office, my phone buzzed with a notification from Forbes. They'd tagged Palette in a post about upcoming partnerships. Underneath, a few creators had commented things like, "This is exactly what we've been waiting for," and, "Finally, a platform that gets us." I smiled, not for my family, not to prove anything, but for myself. My sister didn't want me at her wedding because she thought I'd embarrass her. Instead, she ended up as the cautionary tale in my origin story. You can call that karma, justice, or just the universe having a twisted sense of balance. All I know is this. That night, when the governor placed that trophy in my hands, I didn't feel like an embarrassment. I felt like someone who had finally chosen herself and won. If you were me, and the sister who told you to stay away from her wedding suddenly wanted back into your life, what would you do? Let her in, keep her out, or make her earn every inch?